says here we should work in teams. I tend to think of myself as a one-man wolf pack.
You are about to enter Information Overload, a worldwide transmission with Herp Array's featured Breeder of the Week. Here's your host, Jason Rossi.
Welcome back to Herp Array, a weekly worldwide transmission. I'm your host, Jason Rossi. We are simulcasting on RossiReptiles.com, Buzzsprout, and don't forget to subscribe and download us on iTunes. This week's featured Breeder of the Week has a ton of cool projects going on. If you frequent BP.net, the name Lady O might ring a bell. I'm pleased to announce First Lady of Herp Array, Heather Herps, is this week's special guest. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So you just got married. Congratulations. That's great.
Yes, I did. Thank you very much. It's actually been rather trying to keep everything going at the same time. It's put a lot of interesting twists into the snake breeding world for me, but it's been great, and Joel and I have actually been together for a long time, so it's due time for this. So thank you.
No problem. I'm a married man myself, going on 15 years, so good luck.
Wow.
I'm sure you could do it.
Yeah, well, Joel and I have actually been together for 10 before, so we're not quite to 15, but I have no doubt that we'll be there in due time.
Awesome. We'll be kicking it when we're old.
Yes.
So you're also famous, so why don't you tell us how you felt when you made the reptile report?
You know, I have always been paying attention to that since, you know, Robin and his efforts and stuff like that. I know a few people that contribute and do a lot of the stuff for the reptile report. I have been really excited about working specifically with the TSK line and doing the bumblebee. The killer bee was actually has been my goal since the inception of Heather's Herps, pretty much. And when I saw it back in 2005, it was, this is a goal for me. So I've been working on it and started from scratch. I did, you know, pastel to axanthic and spider to axanthic, and kind of grew up with all of that. And so 6 years later, I finally hit on something, and I'm stoked. And I know I'm not the first one to actually do the TSK bumblebee in any way, shape, or form. I actually think John Daig hit on it last year. But hey, you know, I did it for me. So I was really excited, posted it on BP.net, and, you know, got the accolade from Reptile Report, and that's just been great.
It's always nice to hit something your first time anyway.
Exactly.
Better than that.
And you know what's interesting is that clutch was not intended to be what it was. I actually believe, in all of my efforts, I tend to back other animals up with other animals, and the female that I bred was a pastel het axanthic. I had a spider het axanthic that I bred, but I had intentionally tried for super pastel axanthic, so I actually thought, and I wrote on the tub and on the actual box for the incubator, pastel axanthic, or TSK. It was het, sorry, pastel het male to female pastel het. So when I saw the bumblebee, obviously I was a little confused because I was under the impression that it was supposed to just be super pastel axanthics, and there were only 2 eggs in that clutch. So miraculous upon miraculous, did I actually end up hitting on the TSK bumblebee. That actually ended up being a male as well. So I don't know who was looking up for me upstairs, but that was definitely a very, very good day for me.
So that little guy's staying with you, I take it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. He's actually now going to be the accumulation of a lot of the other axanthic projects that I've been working on. I have done several things with it, and I'm kind of trying to figure out what the next goal, other than the killer bee, will be for him. So we'll see what happens. He's actually also Pos het albino, so that's going to be an interesting twist, too. So we'll see.
So have you figured out that butter Enchi pewter clutch yet?
No. Yes, I have. And actually, it was butter Enchi het hypo to pewter. It basically ended up being a cinnamon Enchi, a pewter Enchi, and a butter pastel Enchi were the 3 Enchi-ish animals that came out of that clutch. And what's interesting is I was actually kind of surprised about the pewter Enchi. It actually doesn't look as nice to me in person as the cinnamon NC does. The pastel kind of washes it out, but then again, they haven't shed yet, so I'm hoping maybe in time, as NCs tend to do, they will grow into their colors. So keep a lookout on the blog for that, because I'm definitely holding a few of those things back for a little bit at least. So.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot going on in your blog. You keep it updated pretty well, I see. It's definitely a lot of information there.
I try. I have to admit, because this year has been the wedding, and we've actually recently moved as well, and just life things have been getting a little busier than usual. I've actually been, unfortunately, not being as consistent as I usually am, but I try as hard as I can to keep it up to date. I missed a couple weeks here and there, and definitely a week during the wedding planning time, as I'm sure you understand. So there are a little bit of gaps in between if you go back into the history, but now I'm actually getting a lot more things updated, and although the incubator page on my page has yet to be updated completely because I did have a blip there as well, but I'm trying, and I'm trying to be as consistent as I can.
So you didn't blog on your honeymoon? Come on.
Oh, no, I did not. Actually, I'd actually have to go take a look at that, to be honest with you. I more than likely did not, though. Yeah, but I might have talked about it after the fact.
Where'd you guys go?
We went to San Diego, which is pretty local. We didn't do anything off the charts, off the wall, because our wedding itself was actually in Santa Barbara at the zoo. So that in itself was my big thing. You know, anything after that is, you know, whatever. So we had a great time at the wedding. We got to play with giraffes and had pictures with a penguin. So, you know, that was more important to me than a honeymoon. So we might do something later. Actually, my friend Mike Clarkson, who does a lot of the filming in reptile-related industry, he actually is planning a safari, and he's planning it in January, and he's hoping to have people go out, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that. So we might make that our honeymoon this upcoming season, so we'll see.
Awesome. Sounds like fun. So what's going on with your weird pastel combinations? Have you come up with anything, or working it out?
Well, there's been a little bit of lacking on my part for keeping track of what I've bred to what, as I clearly stated in the bumblebee thing. I have a pastel special that I've been running through a couple of other things, as well as a pastel or super pastel lesser. And this last clutch that I hatched out, unfortunately, could have possibly been both. And what's interesting with the pastel special stuff, just like pastel vanillas and stuff like that, when it's so subtle, it's kind of hard to determine specifically what it is without, you know, immediately out of the egg, unless it's obviously a super. There you go. So I've been having a little bit of time. I've, you know, have had to hold things back longer than I intend to sometimes, just to make sure that I know what it is when I actually put it up for sale. You know, obviously, if I make a mistake, then hey, more power to the people who buy a pastel from me and end up getting a pastel special. But I'm trying very hard, and I know what to look for in instances to make sure that I know what it is. But that's kind of where the confusion lies for me. It's double clutching or double breeding males and that kind of stuff.
Double fired foot.
Yeah, last year I did the same thing, and it was mainly because I was just so stoked to do specific breedings, but then, you know, some males weren't breeding as much as I'd like. I'd see things, and the males were on other tubs, just on the opposite sides. So, you know, in breeding season, you don't want to see that, so you put another male in thinking it's okay. But when you actually get the eggs, then what? What do you actually know what you're getting? So that's what happened this year, even though I promised myself I wouldn't do it again. But for the sake of timing and anxiety, I did it again anyway. So here I am, 4 months later, trying to figure out exactly what I did. So my suggestion to all of you out there is don't do it.
That's what I was going to say. I'm going to try to focus a little more you know.
Yeah, sorry. Like I said, it's easy enough to know if it's like a lesser versus a spider, but when it comes to the really subtle ones, you know, I've had people call me up, be like, Heather, here's some pictures, what do you think? And I've done that myself with other people as well. You know, I know what I think, but it definitely helps know what other people think, just in case I might be missing something. You know, it's fire stuff, vanilla stuff, special stuff, all of the subtle stuff. You know, even hypo stuff sometimes can get, you know, when they come out of the egg, sometimes it's not as obvious if you're doing super pastel stuff. So, yeah, patience is key, which unfortunately is not my strong suit sometimes. So.
So I really dug how you color-coded your snakes by sex and color on your vendor displays. Like, what made you think of that?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm going to give the credit where credit is due. Back when I started out in 2004, 2005, Camlon Reptiles, which no longer exists from my awareness, they actually had that at one of the first shows that I actually attended. And the two ladies there, they obviously knew what they were doing, and they had the pink and the blue, and I thought that was super cool. And, you know, I asked them if it was okay if I did it too, and they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. So ever since then, that's kind of been a consistent thing for me. But what's interesting is when I actually do the shows, people tend to overlook it, which is surprising to me because, you know, when you see all the color, I would think it would be kind of obvious. But apparently pink doesn't necessarily mean female to some people. I actually had a lady at the Pomona show this last month. She actually told me that I shouldn't be doing this because I was genderifying and assisting in having issues, in gender issues within humans and animals, and shame on me. Yeah.
I take it as you can see it from a distance what you got and what you're heavy on, and, you know, do I want to take a look? I think it's a good thing.
Right. Well, you know, there are all types of people out there, and, you know, it's I've had people come up and stare at the table for 5 minutes and then point at one thing that's on pink and say, is this a boy? I'm like,
yeah.
No. But I do have clearly marked, I actually have tubs on the tables that actually have indicators, blue equals boy, pink equals girl. You know, you gotta, I thought it was clever, but apparently some people just, the kids get it immediately, which is actually very funny to me. The children tell their parents, hey, Mom, this is a girl. Hey, Dad, this is a boy. And the parents are like, oh, I see that now, 5 minutes later. So, yeah.
So that firefly crystal is a beautiful animal. Same with the fire
Thank
crystal.
you.
Why don't you tell us about that?
That is actually one of those subtle things that I'm still kind of on the cusp of, you know, what is it for real? What ended up happening with that clutch, I have the Super Fire Super Mojave that I have, and so I bred that to a pastel special, and I got I got 2 eggs. It was 4-egg clutch. 2 of them went bad, much to my dismay, of course, and these were the 2 animals that were left. And the thing is, the more they grow, the more they color up, just like crystals do anyway. And they both have really blushed out heads, just like fires. So I'm, you know, because it's a Super Fire Super Mojave, I do know that they're fire crystals. That's a given. But the pastel part is kind of hard to distinguish because when you hatch out crystals versus pastel crystals, the head pattern is actually the main indicator until you grow it up for a year, and then the colors are much more obvious. In this case, because it's a fire, their head pattern is already incredibly washed out. So I've been holding both of them back just to kind of see what the color differentiation is. And I think the blog that I posted up for between the 2 comparisons kind of shows the difference. And I'm still pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure it's still, you know, firefied crystal versus fire crystal, but there is a very slight possibility that the male might be a fire-fried crystal as well. It's just a matter of time. So, yeah, The glories of breeding.
So what does the Super Mojave Super Fire look like?
She is all white, completely without pattern, nothing there. And surprisingly, she has black eyes with red pupils. So we're talking basically a black-eyed leucistic, but with no, like the Super Fires, as we might know, have the yellow splotches here and there occasionally. This one is completely white. Somewhat pink, but as you know, it when she sheds, there you go, just like any white snake. But yeah, she's just a white snake with black eyes. So when I got her, I was actually a little concerned that how does this guy know that this is a Super Fire Super Mojave? Didn't really know until I bred her. And definitely, 2 eggs isn't the biggest indicator, but they both were fire crystal. So, there you go.
So what are your future plans for those guys?
The fire crystals?
Yeah.
Well, the male is going to be for sale. I have other plans and recessive crystal-y kind of plans going on. So that guy's up and available. The female I'm going to be holding back just to see if I'm not going insane in terms of firefly versus fire crystal coloration. And plus, she's the only one in the world that I'm aware of, so, why not, right?
I'm going to get you on World of Balls.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. In terms, when you hatch out something like that, I don't have any plans for her right now. I can't even imagine 3 years from now what kind of males I would have to throw at her. But we'll see. I would love to hear anybody's suggestions. That would be great. I'm always for anybody commenting on the blog or shooting me an email or anything like that saying, hey, Heather, this is what I think. All right. That's awesome.
It feels good to get some response back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, we're going to switch it up a little. How long do you wait before you assist feed a hatchling?
That is an excellent question. It depends on the situation. I hatched out a killer clown this year, and he was less than 15 grams. I waited as long as I possibly thought it was appropriate. When you see any animal, any hatchling that is suffering from lethargy or any type of just lack of response, that's usually when I feel like it's definitely time to assist feed. I try as hard as I can not to because it's incredibly stressful for the animal, but, it's appropriate if and when you are ready to take this the next step. You're the one that produce this animal, you are responsible for keeping it alive as long as you possibly can. In terms of the killer clown, unfortunately he did pass away, but I did manage to give him at least one meal beforehand. It wasn't meant to be. But my suggestion to most people is, if you have any concerns, yes, it's great, but, most people that are new to it need to remember that you can do much more harm than good on occasion, depending on how you do it. If you're using too big of an animal, a food item, you can definitely harm the animal. If you're just doing it because you want this animal to grow, there's no guarantees that it's going to be able to survive the shoving of food down its throat. So you need to be careful with that. So I would say in terms of time, if you're having a struggling animal, I would say after it sheds, or even if it doesn't shed, we've had animals that don't shed for 2-3 weeks after it's hatching. I would say a month if it is healthy looking. So.
Okay. So how about those pastel pieds? They look like granity, so what's up with those?
I don't know. I'm going to be straight up with you. I have no clue. I don't,
cool.
It was, yeah, no, they're great. The pastel pied male that I used was the same for both clutches, so I really am not sure. So, I don't know. We'll see. Unfortunately for me, there were 2 males and 1 female, so I'm actually holding back one of the females from that clutch. So, we'll see what happens. But What's interesting is I've hatched out several pastel pieds before, and some of them are just insanely bright, and some of them are just kind of a little bit more muddled, kind of like the ones we're discussing. And there's no rhyme or reason to it specifically. I'm not exactly sure what is setting off the darker versus the lighter unless there's an additional gene, which personally I'm not aware of in my particular clutches. But, hey, there you go. I think Marcus Jane has the crazy, crazy bright ones. Is that it? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, he's got some crazy stuff. He'll be on the show, too, so we'll get the scoop from him.
Oh, cool. There you go. You can ask him, too.
So I see you have black pastel pieds. So we're going to be looking out for the next Panda pied from Heather Herbst, or what?
I would like to say yes, but I don't think I'm going to be the next. I'm not going to be the first. I have a male that I traded last year for, and so he will be in the breeding progress this upcoming season. But the females that I have ready for him may or may not be ready, so we'll see what happens. But
well, we wish you luck.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm actually hoping to put him with the Mojave pet pied and see what happens there. That's never been done.
The blackjack pied, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And imagine how awesome that's going to be. Hopefully.
We'll be waiting for it.
Yes, well, me too.
It's a waiting game. So your Butter Enchi Spider is an outstanding combo to have in your arsenal. I think it's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, she actually ended up being, or she or he? I'm trying to remember now.
I think she was, I was doing my research. Right?
Yeah, I think so. She actually has a little cool paradox pattern on her butt, so that's always fun to have something off of the standard. So she'll be held back like all the Enchi female combo stuff because, of course, as we all know, Enchis are crazy awesome and everybody should have one. And lucky for me, my collection has the Enchi stuff that I'm working on is also hypo. So she's also pothead hypo, so I'll be working with that as well.
Can't go wrong with that at all.
Exactly. Anything gets better with hypo.
So what are your future plans for? Have you thought about it?
No. Like I said, anything that I hatch out, there's very little plans. I try not to plan ahead of time just in case there's something that happens or, maybe next year I pick up an amazing 16-gene animal male, which obviously isn't technically possible yet, but, throw that in there. There's so many possibilities that I wait until they're ready before I even consider it. It makes my sanity works better with that.
So how's your season going?
It's going. Because, like I said, with everything going on with life, it's been a little bit less positive than I would like. We had to move everything, including the incubator, into a new home. And with that being said, eggs were in the incubator. Things did happen. I'm actually currently hatching out a Butter Enchi to spider clutch that's in the incubator right now. And the only thing I've seen so far is 2 normals and one with incredibly weird bug eyes. And it's not completely out yet. So that kind of gives you a sense of what's happening over my end. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. I'm just seeing a lot of stuff that I've never seen before. The bug-eyed thing is brand new to me. I know it's happened to other people, and you can obviously search for it on forums and stuff like that, but it's just very odd. I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know if it's my incubator. I don't know if it was the move, but there have been things, I've had more animals dead in the egg this year than I've had before, but I've also had more clutches this year than before. So it's something to keep in mind, trying to figure out what exactly is going on, but then again, it is what it is, right? So it's working with animals and live creatures.
More people need to understand that they're not bicycles, so you can't just pump them out.
Yes, exactly. Which goes right back to the assist feeding thing. You know, this is life. This is animals and, you know, live creatures that need your help, and you are the owners of these animals. They are needing you. They need everything from you. And it's interesting because I see a lot of people that get into it and that just do it for the sake of doing it instead of actually caring that this is a live creature in their care. But, you know, it takes all types, I guess.
It helps when you love what you're doing. I mean,
yeah,
spending hours and hours with these animals, you know, you gotta feel something, gotta be connected some way.
Exactly, especially spending 3 or 4 hours cleaning up after disgustingness. I think I wrote a blog about that too. Sometimes there's just not enough time in the day, and sometimes it's like, oh yay, I get to go clean now.
So what is the next big project you're going to invest in?
Invest in? That is an excellent question. I'm looking at getting into champagnes a little bit more seriously. I only have a few. And, you know, it seems like there's a lot of combinations and cool stuff to be done with it. You know, with everybody having amazing stuff coming out this year, you know, it just seems to get better and better. You know, anything large amount of gene male is obviously something worth my while because I have a lot of females that I've held back over the years. But specifically the champagne stuff is definitely a plus and definitely on my radar. And, you know, I was considering the deserts just for a little bit, and I'm still somewhat interested in it, but I'm kind of on the fence still. You know, I've heard so many things about it. Personally, I've had no experience with them whatsoever. You know, I still love the way they look, but that we'll see about that. That one's on the fence as well. But new gene stuff, there's not a lot that I don't have, although the GHI, I call it GI. I don't know. I've never really heard other people talk about it because I only read it. So I'm assuming it's pronounced G.
It's GHI. You got to have it.
Okay. All right. So the GHI, that I am definitely going to be looking into as well because I think that's an absolutely amazing morph, and it's been around for long enough that hopefully there's somebody out there that can help a Heather out. So.
Help a Heather out. I like that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I can see the Enchi Mimosa working well in your collection.
Mm-hmm. That would be cool. That would definitely be cool. It's just that's the thing. There's so many things out there that I haven't really. My focus tends to shift in very many directions constantly. So for that, you know, one animal would be great, but so would this and so would that. So I'm sure a lot of people have the same problem.
You can't choose one. You have to have them all.
Exactly. Like Pokemon.
So what? Yeah. What expos
I just dated myself.
What expos do you vend?
I am going to be at Anaheim in 2 weeks, September 14th and 15th. I'm also going to be doing Sacramento, which is September 29th and 30th. In terms of any other ones, in California so far, that's about it until I think December or January for the San Diego show. I don't tend to do out of state just because it tends to be much more difficult, and I do work full time. But I have attended Tinley before, but not as a vendor, and I have attended White Plains before, but not as a vendor. So I do pop in and out of different expos here and there depending on my timing and where I'm traveling at the time. But for my personal vending, I'll be Anaheim and Sacramento is the next upcoming month. Actually, Anaheim should be the same day that we'll be airing this interview, actually.
Awesome. So you'll be there listening to it live.
Yes, I will be doing it and be like, yes, I was on Her Parade. Come visit my booth.
So what'd you think of the White Plains show?
You know, I was really surprised. There isn't anything like that in California. I had a great time when I walked through. It was smaller than most of the California things, but, you know, it's definitely, it was really popular. I was highly impressed. And, you know, I got to meet a lot of cool people that I hadn't actually met in person before, and I got to see some friends that I had. So, you know, I have family out in New York, and I do tend to travel there often enough that I was lucky enough that White Plains was the weekend I was here. So, yeah, it was cool. I would definitely go back again.
The stars were aligned for that trip.
Yes, exactly. I actually think I might have looked it up before we decided to travel, but we were obviously going to be traveling anyway, so.
Double whammy.
Exactly.
Dating myself there. So what's your opinion on what we, the Herp Nation, need to do to combat all this misinformation and legislation that is against us repeatedly, constantly, it seems?
You know, education. Every time I hear something that is blatantly misinformed, like the Burmese python out in Florida that had 900 eggs or whatever ridiculous number it was and was 50 feet long, you know, people came up to me at my job and at, you know, just random people, Heather, what about this? You know, I saw this in the news. I'm like, people, that can't happen. That's, you know, I don't see how that could even be true. But even if it was, you know, it's education. It's people that need to understand that, yes, they are snakes, but they're not going to kill everybody in the world. It's a lot of fear there from a lot of people just because of ignorance. And I think a lot of education needs to be done. You know, I go out and I've taught at community colleges and done stuff like that with the children. Every time I do anything at the shows, I try and educate the children as much as possible. It's a matter of keeping reality and making sure that people understand that not everything they hear is true, and that, you know, go out and find out information on your own, make your own decisions, understand that we all are trying to do the same thing, saving animals, saving our ecosystem. You know, it's just a matter of education, which is unfortunately a lot of people don't take advantage of that. But
saving our way of life also.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, supporting USARC, PJAC, all of those things are definitely helpful for our industry. And understanding that, yes, we are different people. Yes, we might not agree with each other on occasion, but we're all fighting for the same thing. And it's really hard for me when I see stuff on Facebook, when I see stuff on, you know, the forums that are like, oh, so-and-so did this, and they're taking all the money away, and they're not using it for the right things. Well, then what are you doing? Other than complaining, what are you doing to fix it? You know, if you're that upset about it, you do something. So it's just interesting how divided things have gotten. And I think that the central issue is that we all are fighting for the same thing, and that we all need to remember that. So, yeah, definitely frustrating, to say the least.
We need more action instead of sitting on the sidelines spectating.
Yeah, and, you know, even if it is spectators, if you're going to complain about it, don't. Because if you're only going to be spectating and talking jazz, is a nice way to put it, then you shouldn't be saying anything. If you're not doing anything, don't say anything. If you care that much, do something. There's a very thin line between just sitting around and being mad at somebody for doing something versus doing something yourself and taking action. So, yeah. And posting up on Facebook about it is not doing something.
Well, that's a great answer. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we conclude this interview?
No, I think, you know, I think we're good. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, thank you for coming on and taking time out of your hectic schedule, as you stated. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem.
Well, make sure to check out all the cool stuff that she's got going on over at heatherherps.com. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Herp Hooray. Don't forget to subscribe and comment on iTunes. As always, we're streaming live at herphooray.buzzsprout.com and rossyreptiles.com. Herp Hooray, out.